Hello everyone, and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Dylan paced the length of the small interrogation room, his hands quivering despite the chill emanating from the metal table. His memory repeated the scene over and over. The flash of headlights, the blur crossing the street, the hit that seemed both gentle and horrible, as if reality itself collapsed against his car's front bumper. He initially doubted its authenticity. He sensed someone had been hit, believing it was Luna. Only when officers rushed to the scene and carried the lifeless body onto a stretcher did the reality begin to twist within him like a sword he had swallowed whole. He argued that it was an accident. He'd assured them he hadn't seen her. He had panicked. But suddenly, as the hours passed into something shapeless and torturous, Lieutenant Baker entered the room with a folder thinner than Dylan expected. The papers inside rustled like dried leaves, and Baker slammed the door behind him with a quiet thump that seemed too light for the weight on his face. Dylan's breath seized as he noticed the lieutenant's expression, not wrath or fury, but something more dangerous, a quiet, heavy conviction. "We need to talk about the person you hit," Baker continued, his voice low. Dylan's pulse pounded. "I have already told you. I thought it was Luna. I was attempting to." "That's exactly it," Baker interrupted. "It wasn't Luna." The silence was so piercing that the humming fluorescent light appeared to pause. Dylan blinked as his throat tightened. "What do you mean?" "It wasn't Luna. I saw someone who looked exactly like her. Same hair, same build, same—" "You hit the wrong person," Baker remarked bluntly. "And we need to figure out how that happened." Confusion became to dread, and Dylan felt the room tilt. If not Luna, then who? And why had he been so confident? The title of the news alerts that would subsequently go viral on social media, "You hit the wrong person," was more than just a slogan. The truth was shredding his sanity. Baker took a seat across from him and folded his hands. "You mentioned you were driving near the marina. You stated she, whoever she was, ran into the road unexpectedly. But the witness statements do not match." Dylan raised a shaky hand to his forehead. "Witnesses? Who are the witnesses?" "There are two pedestrians. A valet worker. A woman walks her dog. They all noticed anything strange about your account. They stated the victim stayed still, frozen, while your car didn't try to slow down until the last second." "That's not true," Dylan answered quietly. "I tried to stop."
"I did."
"I swear I did." Baker regarded him with those cop's eyes, trained, attentive, and impossible to deceive. "Perhaps you did. Perhaps panic distorted your judgment. But the most serious question is why you assumed the individual was Luna." "Because Luna had been avoiding him. Because he was frantic to talk to her, apologize, and rectify everything before it got out of control. Because he'd heard rumors, ugly whispers, that someone was attempting to frame him, and paranoia had grown within him like mildew in a dark corner. But none of that seemed innocent today." Dylan gulped hard. "I wasn't trying to hurt her." "I want to believe that," Baker told me. "But the person you hit wasn't Luna Nozawa. And her injuries are severe." Dylan felt the words strike his chest. "Who is she?" "That's what we're still trying to figure out," Baker added. "She had no identification on her. She shares Luna's overall appearance, however she is not Luna." Dylan exhaled a sigh of relief and amazement. Luna was safe at home with her family. I was relieved Luna had not been wounded. Disbelief that someone else had taken the hit served no one. A stranger. He wrecked a life without even knowing her name. He sank into his chair. How could this have occurred? "I swear I wasn't going after anyone. I felt she walked in front of the automobile on purpose, as if she didn't notice me or was distracted." Baker arched an eyebrow. "That's not what the witnesses described." Dylan's throat tightened with the words. He brushed his palms against his jeans, feeling dirt and dried blood from before. He needed air, oxygen, to remove the fog in his skull. "She just appeared," Dylan said. "It was dark. The lights by the docks were flickering. She walked hurriedly, head down. I believed it was Luna, because I had seen her before." We argued. It became heated. I was worried she'd run away angry, so I drove around looking for her. When I saw the female, I just assumed. Assumed wrong. Baker finished for him. A long beat passed between them. Lieutenant, Dylan replied slowly. Whoever she is, please tell me she's okay. Baker hesitated. The pause cut Dylan worse than any word could. She's alive, the lieutenant eventually stated. But she is in critical condition. Injury to the spine. Internal bleeding. We're still waiting for the surgeon's update. Dylan felt something shatter inside him, something quiet and basic. He put the heels of his fists against his eyes, as if the blackness could protect him from reality. Oh God, he whispered. I didn't mean to do this. We need to discuss something else, Baker remarked, opening the folder. Dylan's head sprang up. The girl wasn't alone before the accident.
What?
She was seen with someone moments before she ended up in the street. Dylan felt a shiver down his spine. The silhouette of someone standing on the far side of the pavement flashed through his head. But in the midst of the commotion, he hadn't figured anything out. Baker went on. That person fled when the accident happened. Dylan repeated. Why would someone run away rather than help? That's what we're attempting to figure out. Baker leaned in. Do you have any reason to assume that someone would want to frame you? Or put Luna in danger? The question was too close. I don't know. There's been some friction lately.
A lot.
And Luna's mother has been, well, protective. I assumed she didn't trust me. But none of that would have resulted in something like this. Baker watched him for a long time. When people are threatened, they do unexpected things. I'm not a threat to Luna, Dylan replied, his voice shaking. I care about her. That remains to be proven. Dylan flinched as if struck. Lieutenant, please. I realize I look guilty. I know I made mistakes tonight. But I swear I am telling you the truth. Baker did not respond. Instead, he flipped through the photos within the folder. Dylan caught glimpses, angles of the scene highlighted by emergency lights, his car's battered hood, skid marks that didn't extend far enough to verify what he claimed. Then came a snapshot of the victim, her hair strewn like dark silk across the pavement, her face turned away, her garments disheveled and filthy. Dylan's eyes burned. I did that, he murmured, shame thickening his words. I hurt her. Baker shut the folder. Whether it was intentional, negligent, or coerced will determine how this case proceeds. Dylan repeated, shocked. Do you think I was coerced into this? I'm keeping my options open, Baker explained. Because this doesn't add up, not with the victim's sudden presence in the street, not with the fleeing individual, and not with your insistence that you thought she was Luna. The doorbell clanged, and cop walked in and handed Baker a slip of paper. Baker scanned it, his face stiffening. What is it? Dylan inquired, his heart thumping. We've identified the victim, Baker explained carefully. Dylan's blood raced cold. And she does have a connection to Luna.
Who?
Her name is Iris Nakamura. A distant cousin. She has lately returned to Los Angeles. Early interviews indicate that she attempted to reach Luna for several days. Dylan inquired, perplexed. We're still looking into that. The threads knotted quicker than he could grasp them. Why would Luna's cousin be walking alone near the marina? Why was she approaching Dylan's car? Why would somebody flee the scene? And why did she appear so much like Luna in that fleeting second of panic?
She shouldn't have been there, Dylan said.
It's like she was waiting for someone. That's exactly the question, she replied. Who was she waiting for? Why did she end up in your path? The interrogation room felt excessively small and cramped. Despite the cold, Dylan felt sweat beads form on his neck. He forced himself to breathe, focus, and connect thoughts before his mind went further. Lieutenant, is it possible that someone pushed her into the street? Baker did not answer quickly. His quiet was a response in itself. We're considering all options, he added ultimately. But until Iris awakens, and we don't know when that will be, we must rely on evidence. Dylan lowered his gaze. Right now, it paints an unclear picture. I swear I am not lying. I would not hurt Luna. Or her family. I hope that is true, Baker replied, rising from his seat. Because until we confirm what really happened tonight, you are our primary suspect. Dylan felt the words land like lead on his shoulders. Primary suspect. A statement that resonated around the room long after Baker had left. As the door clicked shut behind him, the hours blurred. Time lost its meaning. Officers came and left, with some providing water and others asking basic questions. But Dylan's imagination kept returning to the same puzzle pieces. Luna. Iris. The mystery figure who fled. And the moment his life fractured as a result of a single error. Meanwhile, across the city, Luna sat in her mother's living room, twisting the edge of a blanket as she struggled to process the news. She hadn't spoken to Dylan since their previous dispute, which ended with her storming out and refusing to return his phone calls. She never anticipated that hours later, her cousin would be laying in a hospital bed after being mistaken for Luna. Her mother, Poppy, walked the room in frantic circles. How could this happen? Why would Iris be near Marina? Luna's voice quivered. She knew she had to come here first, as she had promised. Mom said she needed to talk to me. She didn't explain why. Just that it was urgent. Poppy stopped pacing. Luna's eyes fluttered with terror, something she remembered all too well. Did she mention anything else? Anything at all? Luna shakes her head.
No.
She sounded terrified. Poppy closed her eyes and breathed shakily. I was frightened of this. What do you mean? Luna whispered. Iris discovered something. Something she shouldn't have done. Poppy dropped into the sofa beside her daughter. And now she's been hurt. Luna's heartbeat sped. Mom, what did she find? Poppy paused, chewing her lip. Luna had only seen that expression a few times, each time related to a secret Poppy tried to hide deep. But before Poppy could respond, a knock came at the door. Luna's heart raced as she expected further inquiries from the officers. But when she answered the door, there was no uniform. Only Finn. His face was tense with worry. Luna, he continued quietly, I arrived as soon as I heard. Are you okay? I'm good, Luna answered reflexively, even though nothing about the night seemed right. But Iris. Finn nodded and entered. I spoke with the hospital. They are preparing her for another round of surgery. It does not look good. Luna's knees wobbled. Finn rushed out to stabilize her with his hand on her shoulder. Poppy observed from across the room with a tense frown. Finn, Poppy continued, her voice uncharacteristically stern. Did anyone explain why Iris was at the marina? No, Finn said. But they know she wasn't alone. Luna took a deep breath. They found someone else? Witnesses saw her talking to someone moments before the accident, Finn added. Police believe that person fled. Poppy tensed. Does anyone know who it was? Finn paused. Not yet. Luna's thoughts raced. Why would someone run away unless they were involved in this? That's what Baker is trying to figure out, Finn explained. He turned to Poppy. However, I have a question for you. When was the last time you spoke with Iris? Poppy froze. 1 second too long. Earlier today, she admitted finally. She called and said she needed to talk to Luna. She did not explain why. Did she mention being followed? Finn inquired. Again, Poppy hesitated. No, she replied. But her voice tightened, revealing something else. Luna felt her gut twist. Poppy clenched her mouth and muttered, I didn't want to drag you into this. Into what? Luna demanded. What's going on? Poppy's eyes glistened. Your cousin has discovered something about our family. Finn looked at Luna, his expression hardening. How dangerous is this? Before Poppy could respond, another knock shook them. This time, it was Lieutenant Baker. Luna, he continued earnestly, we need to talk. Back at the station, Dylan sat alone, replaying everything in agonizing loops. He wasn't sure how long he'd been there when the door reopened. Baker returned, but this time his look was suspicious rather than frustrated or harsh. We've obtained new footage, Baker stated. Dylan's pulse quickened as he heard, from a security camera near the marina. And, take a look. Baker set a tablet on the table and pressed play. Grainy footage surfaced of a man walking fast down the sidewalk. A second figure appears at a distance. Iris. Dylan, behind her, leaned forward, his eyes wide open. Is that? Do you recognize them? Baker asked aggressively. Dylan's throat became dry. He nodded slowly. Yes. Luna knew the person who was following Iris. Someone having hidden motivations. Someone who should not have been anywhere near the marina. It was not Luna. It was not a stranger. It was someone far more surprising. And when the implication became clear, Dylan felt the earth tilt once more, this time not from fright, but from the terrifying truth. You hit the wrong person, Baker said gently. But someone made sure you did. And everything, Luna's anxiety, Iris' message, the departing figure, began to converge into one horrible realization. Someone had set it up, and they weren't truly after Iris. It was Luna. And now the reality was becoming clear. Lieutenant Baker stood in the sterile corridor of Los Angeles General Hospital, arms drawn tightly across his chest, peering through the glass at the comatose man in ICU bed 3. The name on the chart was Carter Alexander J., not Luna. Not even close. He'd spent the last 48 hours functioning under the assumption, Dylan's frenzied confession, the blood on his knuckles, the smashed phone with Luna's contact photos still visible on the cracked screen. Everyone had believed it. Dylan had believed it. He had screamed her name repeatedly in the questioning room. I thought it was Luna. I assumed she was with him again. But the woman who had staggered into the ER waiting room, mascara smudged and clutching a purse she didn't own, had finally broken the spell. That's not Luna, she muttered to the nurse. That is my fiancé. Alex Carter. He was wearing my jacket because the weather was cold. Luna lent it to him last week, and he forgot to return it. Baker closed his eyes and squeezed the bridge of his nose. One jacket. One dumb, borrowed pastel pink jacket with tiny embroidered moons on the cuffs. Luna's distinctive garment that half of Los Angeles seemed to recognize had escalated a case of mistaken identity into a near-fatal accident. He turned away from the glass and returned to the small family waiting area, where the Forestos, Logans, and what appeared to be half of Forrester Creations had formed a tense knot. Ridge was pacing. Brooke clutched Hope's hand so firmly that her knuckles were white. Steffi stood with her back to the wall, arms crossed, and her jaw clenched, as it always did when she was holding back a tidal wave of anger. Liam hovered uselessly near the vending machine, as if he wanted to punch it. Dylan sat in the center of them all, wrists cuffed in front of him, head lowered, blood still drying under his fingernails and flanked by 2 uniforms. Baker paused in front of him. Dylan Walsh, he whispered, his voice low enough for only the immediate circle to hear. You hit the wrong person. Dylan pulled his head up. His eyes were huge, red-rimmed, and crazy.
What?
My name is Alexander Carter. 34 years old. Works in accounting at Forrester Creations. He wore Luna's jacket. The one you noticed from across the parking lot. The one you assumed meant she was cheating on you again. Dylan's jaw opened and closed. He let out a sound that was a combination of sobbing and choke.
No.
Baker interrupted, saying, they weren't kissing. Witnesses said Carter leaned in to thank her for lending him the jacket earlier in the day. She handed him the keys to her car, allowing him to move it out of the loading zone. You saw what you wanted to see. Hope made a quiet, broken sound. Brooke drew her close. Steffi eventually spoke, her voice like ice shattering. So the man in there fighting for his life isn't just an imaginary boyfriend. Dylan pushed forward in his chair, cuffs rattling. I didn't mean Lieutenant, I thought. You thought wrong, the officer replied. Now an innocent man has a shattered skull, a brain bleed, and 4 broken ribs. Doctors say if he survives the night, it will be a miracle. Ridge paused his pacing. His voice was deathly quiet. Where is Luna? Baker exhaled. In protective custody. She has been there since yesterday morning. She contacted us when Dylan began making threats on her phone. She said she was afraid for her life. We had no notion he'd go after someone else. The room appeared to shrink. Dylan was the center of attention. He shrank beneath the weight of them. Hope stepped forwards, trembling. You nearly killed a man because you couldn't stop your jealousy. And Luna, my God, Luna has been afraid, hiding from you, and you are still. I adore her, Dylan shouted, his voice cracking. She stated she was done with me, but then I saw her with some guy in her jacket. She was not with anyone, Steffi snapped. She has been trying to get away from you. We told her to leave you months ago. Baker raised his hand. The uniforms tightened, ready to yank Dylan back if he lunged again. Enough, said the lieutenant. Mr. Walsh, you've been arrested for attempted murder. If Mr. Carter does not come through, the DA will consider whether to enhance the charge. You have the right to keep silent. Dylan was not listening. He was looking past Baker, through the glass, to the still person in the bed. He's really not. She wasn't. No, Baker responded. You hit the wrong person. The words hung in the air like smoke. Brooke eventually spoke, her voice filled with tears. Luna will have to live with this for the rest of her life. Ridge stepped to the window and stared at Alex Carter. He has a fiancée.
Kids?
2, Baker said gently. Ages 5 and 7. Steffi closed her eyes. Liam eventually stopped lurking and came to stand beside her, but she dismissed him. Dylan lowered his head into his shackled hands and began sobbing, ugly, agonizing sounds that resonated down the corridor. Nobody moved to soothe him. Baker nodded at the outfits. Take him downtown. I'll be there to complete booking in 20 minutes. As they helped Dylan to his feet, he spun one last time toward the glass. Tell him I'm sorry, he gasped out. Tell his family, tell Luna, God, tell her I'm sorry. Baker did not respond. He simply stared as they led Dylan away, the sound of cuffs and shuffling feet receding down the corridor. Then he returned to the family. Luna wants to see her mother, he said to Brooke. She's prepared to provide a detailed statement. After that, we will need to discuss a restraining order. There's also counseling, and whatever else is required to ensure that this never happens again. Brooke nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Hope clung to her. Ridge spoke without turning away from the window. Will Carter make it? They don't know yet, Baker replied. The next 12 hours are critical, Steffi pushed off the wall. When he wakes up, if he wakes up, I want to be the one to tell him why some lunatic beat him half to death over a jacket. Baker's gaze met hers. You'll get your chance. He began to leave, but halted. One more thing, he added. Luna asked me to tell all of you something. They waited. She said, tell them I have never cheated. Not once. And tell them I'm done being terrified. Brooke let out a small wail. Hope buried her face into her mother's shoulder. Baker gave them a brief pause before walking away, his sneakers creaking on the smooth floor. Behind him, the ICU machines beeped continuously, counting down the seconds of a life hanging in the balance due to one horrific, irrevocable error. You struck the wrong person, and no amount of regret will change it.